Private Lisa Carter's legs shook as she stepped off the military transport ship. The red dirt beneath her boots made a strange crunching sound, like walking on broken glass. In front of her, the research base looked small and fragile against the scary landscape of Tartarus Prime. Everything here seemed designed to kill humans. The air tasted metallic and bitter. Lisa pulled her breathing mask tighter against her face. Through the thick orange fog that never seemed to clear, she could see twisted shapes that might have been trees, but they moved wrong. Their bark looked like metal, and their branches ended in what looked like hungry mouths full of sharp teeth. "Listen up, Carter," Sergeant Tony Brooks shouted over the howling wind. His voice was rough from years of smoking and yelling at new soldiers. "This place will eat you alive if you're not careful. Those things out there," he pointed toward the alien forest, "they've killed more researchers than enemy bullets ever did." Lisa nodded quickly, trying to look braver than she felt. She was only 19, fresh out of basic training, and this was her first real assignment. The other soldiers in her unit had been talking about Tartarus Prime during the long space journey. They called it the planet where careers went to die, literally. The research station was smaller than she expected. Just a few metal buildings connected by covered walkways, all surrounded by a high electric fence that buzzed and sparked. Beyond the fence, the alien wilderness stretched for thousands of miles. No rescue would come quickly if something went wrong. Dr. Rachel Adams, the head scientist, met them at the main gate. She was a thin woman in her 40s, with tired eyes and gray hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Welcome to hell," she said without smiling. "Hope you brought your own funeral clothes because the local wildlife doesn't leave much behind." Lisa's stomach dropped. She had joined the military to see the galaxy, but she never imagined anything like this. The stories she heard during briefing were terrifying. Giant creatures that could tear through steel armor like paper, plants that could dissolve human flesh in seconds. Even the air could kill you if your breathing equipment failed. On her first patrol, Lisa stayed close to the other soldiers. They walked along the fence line, checking for damage and watching for threats. The alien forest was quiet, but it felt like being watched by invisible eyes. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made her jump. By her third day, Lisa was starting to feel more confident. She had learned to identify the most dangerous plants and animals. She knew which sounds meant real danger and which were just the planet's natural background noise. The other soldiers were starting to trust her to walk points sometimes. That's when she heard it. The growl started low, like distant thunder, but it wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from behind a group of large, meat-eating plants about 50 meters away. The sound made her bones vibrate and her teeth ache. She had never heard anything like it before, but somehow she knew exactly what it meant. Death was coming. Lisa turned around slowly, not wanting to make any sudden movements. What she saw made her blood turn cold. The creature stepping out from behind the alien plants was massive, bigger than any animal she had ever seen. It was the size of an army tank but moved like a hunting cat. Its skin was black as midnight, but strange blue lines glowed under the surface like lightning trapped under glass. The thing had 6 legs, each ending in claws that looked like they could cut through steel. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth that looked like broken crystals. 4 yellow eyes stared at her with an intelligence that was almost human. This was a Night Stalker, the thing that had killed 17 people in the past 6 months. The monster that made grown soldiers wake up screaming from nightmares. Lisa's training kicked in. She raised her rifle, finger moving to the trigger. One shot to the head might stop it before it could charge. But as she looked through her weapons scope, she noticed something that made her pause. The creature's front leg was badly hurt. The skin was torn and infected, with green pus oozing from deep cuts. It was limping, trying not to put weight on the damaged leg. This wasn't a hunting predator. This was a hurt animal. "Easy there, big guy," Lisa whispered, slowly lowering her weapon. She had always been good with animals back on Earth. Her grandfather had taught her that hurt creatures were often more scared than dangerous. The Night Stalker tilted its enormous head to one side, studying her with those glowing eyes. For a moment, the two of them just stared at each other across the alien landscape. Lisa could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Then, without any warning, the creature turned and disappeared back into the forest, moving surprisingly quietly for something so large. Lisa stood there alone, shaking and wondering if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. 3 weeks had gone by since Lisa's first meeting with the giant creature, and something strange was happening. Every day when she went out on patrol, she could feel eyes watching her from the alien forest. Sometimes she caught glimpses of movement in the shadows between the twisted trees. The other soldiers thought she was going crazy, but Lisa knew the truth. The Night Stalker was following her. Dr. Kevin Miller, the head scientist at the research station, laughed when Lisa told him about it during their morning meeting. He was a short, fat man who had spent most of his career studying dangerous aliens from the safety of his laboratory. "You're being silly, Carter," he said, waving his hand like he was shooing away a fly. "These creatures are just smart animals. Very deadly smart animals, but still, just beasts following their instincts." But Lisa wasn't convinced. Every morning before her patrol, she would leave a small pile of medical supplies near the electric fence. Antiseptic spray, bandages, pain medicine, anything that might help heal wounds. And every morning when she came back, the supplies were gone. The creature was taking them. More importantly, Lisa had been watching the Night Stalker through her binoculars whenever she could spot it. The infected wound on its front leg was getting better. The green pus was gone, and the torn skin was starting to close up. Whatever the creature was doing with those medical supplies, it was working. The other soldiers thought Lisa was wasting valuable equipment. "You're feeding a monster," complained Private Jake Williams during lunch one day. He was a big guy from Texas who loved to brag about all the dangerous animals he had hunted back on Earth. "That thing is just waiting for the right moment to tear you apart." Lisa shook her head. "If it wanted to kill me, I'd already be dead. It's had plenty of chances." She had been thinking about this for weeks. The Night Stalker was easily strong enough to break through the fence if it really wanted to. It could have attacked her during any of her patrols, but it hadn't. Instead, it kept its distance and seemed more interested in watching than hunting. The real test came during a routine mission in Sector 7, the most dangerous part of the research area. Lisa's squad was supposed to collect soil samples and check for new plant growth. It should have been a simple job, but nothing on Tartarus Prime was ever simple. They were about 2 miles from the base when Private Danny Rodriguez spotted movement in the sky. "We've got company," he said, pointing upward with a shaking finger. Lisa looked up and felt her stomach drop. Circling above them were at least 6 razorwings, smaller predators that hunted in packs. They looked like flying nightmares, with sharp wings that could slice through armor and beaks full of razor teeth. Unlike the Night Stalker, these creatures were pure killers, with no intelligence beyond their hunger. "Form a circle," shouted Sergeant Brooks, but it was too late. The razorwings dove toward them like living missiles. Their wing blades extended for the kill. Private Williams raised his plasma rifle and fired, but his shot went wild as panic set in. That's when the miracle happened. A blur of black and blue exploded from the alien undergrowth, like a rocket. The Night Stalker moved faster than Lisa thought possible for something so large. Its claws found the first razorwing before the flying predator even knew what hit it. There was a wet, tearing sound, and pieces of the creature scattered across the red dirt. The Night Stalker didn't stop there. It leaped into the air with impossible grace, its powerful legs launching it higher than seemed physically possible. Another razorwing died before it could change course. Then, another. The giant predator moved like a deadly dancer, each movement perfectly calculated to cause maximum damage. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. 6 razor wings lay dead around the squad, their purple blood steaming in the alien air. The nut landed softly near Lisa, not even breathing hard from the fight. For a long moment, its glowing eyes met hers across the battlefield. Lisa could see intelligence in those eyes. Not animal cunning, but real understanding. The creature had recognized her as the human who had helped it heal, and now it had returned the favor by saving her life and the lives of her squad mates. "Holy shit," whispered Rodriguez, his weapon still pointing uselessly at the sky. "Did that monster just save our asses?" The Night Stalker looked at each of the soldiers in turn, as if memorizing their faces. Then, without making a sound, it melted back into the alien forest like it had never been there at all. Private Williams lowered his rifle with shaking hands. "Carter, what the hell did you do to that thing?" Lisa stared at the spot where the Night Stalker had disappeared. She thought about all those mornings leaving medical supplies by the fence, all those times she had spoken to empty air, hoping the creature could somehow understand her words of thanks. "I think I made a friend," she said quietly. From that day forward, none of the other soldiers questioned Lisa's relationship with the creature. They had seen proof that sometimes the most dangerous predators could become the most loyal protectors. Dr. Amy Foster had always been good with languages. She could speak 7 human languages fluently and had spent her career studying how different species communicated. But when Lisa Carter came to her with wild stories about talking to a night, she thought the young soldier had finally cracked under pressure. "Look, Carter, I know this place is stressful," Dr. Foster said, not looking up from her computer screen. "But these creatures are just animals. Very smart, very dangerous animals, but they don't have language like we do." She was a practical woman in her 50s who had seen too many soldiers lose their minds on alien worlds. Lisa wasn't giving up that easily. "Just watch the recordings, Doc, please. I've been filming my interactions with it for 2 months now. Something weird is happening, and I need someone smarter than me to figure it out." Dr. Forster sighed and pulled up Lisa's video files on her main screen. What she saw made her forget about everything else she was supposed to be doing that day. The footage showed Lisa talking to empty air near the fence. But the audio equipment picked up responses that the human ear couldn't catch. Low-frequency sounds, almost like whale songs, coming from the forest. "This is impossible," Dr. Foster muttered, replaying the same section over and over. "Look at this pattern. When you speak in a lower voice, the creature moves closer to the fence. When you speak higher, it backs away. It's responding to your tone like it understands the emotional content." Lisa had started calling the creature Shadow because of how it moved through the alien forest without making any noise. For 2 months, she had been visiting the same spot by the fence every day, bringing medical supplies and trying to communicate. At first, it seemed hopeless. But slowly, patterns began to emerge. Shadow would make soft clicking sounds when it was calm. Louder clicks meant it was alert or worried. When Lisa copied these sounds, the creature would tilt its massive head like it was listening carefully. Sometimes it would click back, like they were having a conversation. "Watch this part," Lisa said, fast-forwarding to a section filmed just last week. On the screen, she was crouched by the fence, drawing simple pictures in the red dirt, with a stick, circle for sun, wavy lines for water, stick figures for humans. Shadow was watching from about 20 feet away, its glowing eyes focused on every movement. Dr. Foster leaned forward in her chair. Is it, ... Is it learning from you?" The breakthrough happened on a Tuesday morning when Lisa was running late for her daily visit with Shadow. She rushed to their usual meeting spot and started drawing her normal pictures in the dirt. But this time, Shadow moved closer than ever before. The massive creature extended one of its razor-sharp claws and began scratching its own symbols in the ground next to Lisa's. The drawings were crude, but unmistakable. Shadow drew what looked like several large creatures standing together. Then, smaller creatures in metal shells surrounding them with weapons. The final picture showed the large creatures lying still, while the metal-shelled figures carried away pieces of them. Lisa felt sick as she realized what Shadow was trying to tell her. "Dr. Foster, you need to see this right now," she said into her radio, her voice shaking. When Dr. Foster arrived at the fence, she found Lisa sitting in the dirt next to the most incredible discovery of her career. The symbols were still fresh, carved deep into the red soil by claws that could have easily killed the young soldier. "My God," Dr. Foster whispered, kneeling down to study the primitive artwork. "It's trying to tell us what happened to its family. These metal shells, they look like the armor that off-world poachers wear." Lisa nodded, her eyes wet with unshed tears. "Shadow isn't a killer, Doc. It's a survivor. All those attacks on the research teams weren't random. It was trying to protect its territory from what it thought were more poachers." The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. For months, the research station had been treating the Night Stalkers as mindless predators. But the truth was much more heartbreaking. These were intelligent beings with families and emotions, and they had been hunted almost to extinction by criminals who wanted to sell their glowing organs on the black market. Shadow was watching both humans carefully as they studied its drawings. The blue lines under its skin pulsed brighter when Dr. Foster nodded in understanding. Lisa had learned that this meant the creature was feeling strong emotions, usually happiness or relief. "I understand," Lisa said softly, looking up into Shadow's glowing eyes. "I'm sorry about your family. We're not like the others. We won't hurt you." The change in Shadow was immediate and obvious. The creature's bioluminescent veins flared with bright light for several seconds, and it made a sound Lisa had never heard before. It was almost like purring, but deeper and more musical. Dr. Foster was frantically taking notes and recordings, trying to capture every detail of this historic moment. "This changes everything we know about this species," Dr. Foster said, her voice full of excitement and wonder. "If they can communicate, if they have culture and memory, then they're not just animals. They're people. Different from us, but still people." From that day forward, Lisa's relationship with Shadow became the most important research project on Tartarus Prime. Every conversation, every shared symbol, every moment of understanding between human and alien was recorded and studied. What they discovered would change how humanity approached first contact with intelligent species forever. The young soldier who had started out just trying to help a wounded animal had accidentally become the first human ambassador to an entirely new civilization. It started with just a tiny scratch. Lisa had been walking through some thick alien bushes during her morning patrol when a thorn caught her arm. The cut was so small she barely noticed it at first. She cleaned it with antiseptic spray and put on a bandage, thinking nothing more about it. But by evening, something was very wrong. The scratch had turned an angry red color and felt hot to the touch. Lisa's temperature started climbing, and she began sweating, even though the medical bay was kept cool. Dr. Helen Parker, the station's chief medical officer, took one look at the wound, and her face went pale. "We've got a problem," Dr. Parker said, running test after test on Lisa's blood samples. "This isn't like any infection I've seen before. The pathogen is spreading through her system faster than her body can fight it." Within 6 hours, Lisa was delirious with fever. She drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about Shadow and home and things that made no sense. Her temperature hit dangerous levels, and her immune system began shutting down as the alien toxin overwhelmed her body's defenses. "We need to get her to the orbital medical station immediately," Dr. Parker told Sergeant Brooks. "Our equipment here isn't advanced enough to handle something like this. If we don't move her soon, she's going to die." But there was a problem. The next transport ship wouldn't arrive for 5 days, and Lisa didn't have that long. Dr. Parker tried everything in her medical arsenal: antibiotics, antivirals, immune system boosters, even experimental treatments that hadn't been fully tested. nothing worked. The infection kept spreading, and Lisa kept getting worse. On the second day, something strange happened. Shadow, who had been visiting Lisa every morning for months, suddenly disappeared. The creature that had never missed a day of their routine meetings was nowhere to be found. The other soldiers searched the area around the fence, but there was no sign of the massive predator. "Maybe it knows she's dying," suggested Private Rodriguez sadly. "Animals can sense that stuff sometimes. Maybe it's just saying goodbye in its own way." But Dr. Foster had a different theory. What if it's not saying goodbye? What if it's looking for something? These creatures have lived on this planet for thousands of years. They must know things about surviving here that we don't. Lisa spent 3 days fighting for her life in the medical bay. Her fever spiked so high that Dr. Parker had to pack her in ice to prevent brain damage. She stopped responding to voices and barely seemed to be breathing. Everyone at the research station prepared for the worst. Then, on the 4th morning, Shadow returned. The creature appeared at the fence, carrying something Lisa had never seen before. It was a flower, but unlike any plant that grew near the research station. The petals glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The stem was translucent, showing liquid flowing through it like blood through veins. Shadow made urgent clicking sounds and scratched frantically at the fence. Dr. Foster rushed to see what was happening and found the creature trying to push the glowing flower through the electric barrier. "It wants us to take that thing," she said, calling for Dr. Parker over the radio. "Shadow brought us some kind of plant. I think it wants us to use it to help Lisa." When Dr. Parker saw the alien flower, she immediately refused. "Absolutely not. We have no idea what that thing might do to her. It could be poisonous. It could make the infection worse. We're not going to experiment on a dying woman with random alien plants." But Dr. Foster wasn't giving up. "Look at how Shadow is acting. It's desperate. This creature has been studying us for months, learning about Lisa specifically. What if it knows something we don't? What if this plant is medicine?" The argument might have continued, but Lisa made the decision herself. Even in her fevered state, she could hear the conversation happening around her bed. She reached out with a shaking hand and touched the glowing flower that someone had placed on her bedside table. The moment her skin made contact with the petals, something incredible happened. The blue lines under Shadow's skin began pulsing in perfect rhythm with the flower's glow. The plant seemed to respond to the creature's presence, growing brighter and more vibrant, slowly. Impossibly, Lisa's fever began to break. Her temperature dropped degree by degree as the alien plant's mysterious healing properties fought against the deadly infection. The angry red color faded from her wound, and the swelling went down. "This is incredible," Dr. Parker whispered, watching her instruments in amazement. "Her white blood cell count is returning to normal. The pathogen is actually retreating. How is this possible?" Dr. Foster was taking detailed notes and recordings of everything. "It's a symbiotic relationship. Shadow's species must have evolved alongside these healing plants over millions of years. The creature knew exactly what Lisa needed to survive." 2 days later, Lisa was sitting up in bed, weak but alive. Shadow had never left the area outside the medical facility during her recovery, standing guard like a loyal protector. The massive predator seemed to understand that its human friend was getting better, and its bioluminescent veins pulsed with what could only be described as happiness. The peaceful recovery was interrupted when Colonel Robert Shaw arrived on an unscheduled transport ship. He was a career military officer who believed in regulations above all else, and he had come to Tartarus Prime with specific orders. "Private Carter," he announced, marching into the medical bay with his official papers. "You're being transferred off-world immediately. Command has decided that your emotional attachment to the local wildlife has compromised your ability to perform your duties." Lisa struggled to sit up straighter. "Sir, with respect, I think my relationship with Shadow has actually improved our mission effectiveness. We've learned more about this species in the past few months than in years of previous research. Colonel Shaw wasn't interested in discussion. Pack your gear, soldier. The transport leaves in 2 hours. But when they walked outside toward the waiting shuttle, Shadow was there waiting for them. The creature positioned itself directly between Lisa and the transport ship, its massive body blocking the path. A low growl rumbled from deep in its throat, and its claws extended slightly from their sheaths. "Stand down, Private," Colonel Shaw ordered, his hand moving to his sidearm. "Order that thing to move." Lisa looked at the colonel, then at Shadow, then back at the colonel again. "Sir, I don't think that's going to work. Shadow doesn't take orders from me. It makes its own decisions." The standoff continued for several tense minutes, with neither human nor alien willing to back down. Finally, Colonel Shaw realized that separating Lisa from Shadow might be more trouble than it was worth. The attack came like lightning from a clear sky. One moment, Lisa was having her morning coffee in the research station cafeteria, and the next moment, alarms were screaming throughout the facility. 3 massive warships had appeared out of nowhere, dropping out of hyperspace right above Tartarus Prime. "All personnel to battle stations," Sergeant Brooks shouted over the intercom. "We are under attack by unknown hostile forces." Through the cafeteria windows, Lisa could see armored figures dropping from the sky on jetpacks. They wore black combat suits with skull symbols painted on their helmets. The Crimson Fleet, the most feared pirates in this part of the galaxy. They had come to steal the valuable alien specimens that the research station had been collecting. Dr. Parker's voice crackled over the radio, filled with panic. "They're heading straight for the specimen storage facility. If they get those samples, years of research will be lost forever." Lisa grabbed her rifle and ran toward her assigned defensive position, but she wasn't alone. Shadow had somehow gotten inside the research station during the chaos. The massive creature moved through the corridors like a living ghost, its black hide making it nearly invisible in the dim emergency lighting. "Shadow, what are you doing here?" Lisa whispered into her comm unit, knowing the creature could hear her, even if it couldn't respond in words. "It's dangerous. You need to get out of here." But Shadow had no intention of leaving. The creature had made its choice months ago, when Lisa first helped heal its wounds. This human was part of its family now, and Shadow would defend family too. The first group of Crimson Fleet raiders broke through the main entrance, their plasma rifles cutting through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. They moved with military precision, clearly experienced in this type of assault. Private Rodriguez and 2 other soldiers tried to stop them, but were quickly overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. That's when Shadow struck. The creature emerged from the shadows behind the raiders like a nightmare come to life. Its claws found their targets with surgical precision, and within seconds, 3 of the attackers were down. The remaining pirates spun around in confusion, trying to find an enemy they couldn't see. "Unknown creature in Sector 3, one of the raiders shouted into his comm, requesting immediate backup. Lisa coordinated the defense from her position in the command center, watching Shadow's heat signature on her scanner. The creature was moving through the station's ventilation system, using its knowledge of the facility's layout to appear wherever the pirates least expected it. "Shadow, there are 4 more coming down the east corridor," Lisa whispered into her headset. "Can you get behind them?" The creature understood. Lisa had learned that Shadow was incredibly intelligent, capable of understanding complex tactical situations and adapting its strategy accordingly. Within minutes, the 4 raiders in the east corridor were eliminated, their weapons scattered across the floor. The battle continued for 2 hours, with Shadow and the human defenders working together like a perfectly coordinated team. Lisa's military training helped her predict where the raiders would strike next, while Shadow's natural hunting instincts made it the perfect silent assassin. Colonel Shaw, who had been trapped in the administrative section during the attack, watched the entire battle through security cameras. He saw Lisa giving tactical advice to a creature that shouldn't have been able to understand human speech. He saw Shadow following complex battle plans with the precision of a trained soldier. When the Crimson Fleet finally retreated, their mission a complete failure, Colonel Shaw stood in the wreckage of the main corridor. Bodies of defeated pirates lay everywhere, but not a single research station personnel had been killed. It was a military miracle. "Private Carter," Colonel Shaw said slowly, his voice filled with new respect. "I think we need to have a serious conversation about your future in the military." 6 months later, Lisa stood in a gleaming new facility on a space station orbiting Earth. The Xenobiology Defense Corps had been created specifically to handle first contact situations with intelligent alien species. Lisa wore the uniform of a lieutenant, and Shadow stood beside her, now officially recognized as her partner and co-instructor. Before them sat 12 human-alien pairs from different worlds across the galaxy. There was Corporal James Miller with his crystalline spider partner from the ice world of Vega Prime. Sergeant Beth Thompson stood next to a flying creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a dragon from the jungle. Moon of Kepler 4, 38b. Each partnership had been formed through mutual respect and understanding rather than dominance and control. "Your mission is unlike anything the military has attempted before," Lisa addressed the new recruits. "You're not soldiers in the traditional sense. You're ambassadors, defenders, and bridge builders between different civilizations." Shadow's bioluminescent veins pulsed with bright blue light. A sign that Lisa had learned meant the creature was happy or excited. Over the months, their communication had evolved far beyond simple clicks and drawings. They could understand each other's intentions with just a glance or a gesture. The old way of doing things was based on fear and aggression, Lisa continued. "We assumed that bigger weapons and stronger armor would solve every problem. But what we've learned is that sometimes the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy can become humanity's most loyal allies." Dr. Foster, who had been promoted to head of xenolinguistics for the entire program, nodded approvingly from the back of the room. Her research on human-alien communication had become the foundation for a completely new approach to interspecies relations. As the first graduating class of the Xenobiology Defense Corps prepared for deployment to hostile worlds across the galaxy, Lisa reflected on how far she had come. What started as a simple act of kindness to a wounded animal had grown into something that would change the future of human space exploration. The scared 19-year-old recruit who had first stepped onto Tartarus Prime was gone. In her place stood a confident officer who had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their ability to make friends with creatures that everyone else feared. Sometimes the deadliest predators really did make the most faithful allies.